Hey, it's Chris from Evenflow. After my last video, someone that I'm very close to, who I may or may not live with, and I do, informed me that the ceiling light that I was using for my very professional lighting effects was making a heck of a glare off the top of my bald head here. It hurt. So tonight I'm using this little lamp over to my right, so the only glare you're going to see is kind of here. And that's okay, because I'm wearing the blue shirt to make these blue babies pop. And it is working. I look good. Deny it. I dare you. But in that video, I talked about the fact that we're not talking to each other anymore. We would rather communicate with our phones, tweeting and texting to each other rather than engaging in actual spoken conversation. The cliche we always hear and that we always use is that when you go out to dinner somewhere and you look around you, people are more focused on their phones rather than engaging in conversation with the people they came out to dinner with. And ultimately, I would love to change that. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of it as well. It's a great way to, spend your time if somebody's gotten up to go do something else. But the fact remains that we are talking to each other less and less. Now, I'm reading the 4-Hour Work Week just because I wanted to see what all the hype was about. I feel like the only person in America left who has not read the book. But even Tim Ferriss says that when he's discussing how he got his book published and what he needed to do. I'm listening to the audiobook, and at 2 hours and 58 seconds, he says that we need to rediscover the power of the forgotten skill called talking. And I agree with that. I don't know if that's the APA proper way to cite an audiobook. If not, we'll correct that later on. But the fact remains, he's on to something, and I agree with him. Talking is a diminishing skill. It is a forgotten skill. And I would love to work on that, and I would love to change that. And I think part of the reason that it is a diminishing skill is the fact that it's not necessarily required in college anymore, or high school for that matter. Now, when I was in college, in the late 90s, early 2000s, public speaking was a general education requirement. Every single student on campus had to take public speaking. You could not walk across that stage and get a diploma without giving 4 speeches in front of a classroom. Now, as a speech major where I was, I had to do that. I also had to take an advanced public speaking class, and then interpersonal, small group, organizational communication, all of these other communication classes where a big portion of the class was getting up and giving presentations. Nowadays, that's not the case. I teach public speaking at the college level. I also teach a class called Media in the Digital Age. The Media in the Digital Age course is a required course for the communication major. Public speaking is not. That's mind-blowing to me. In fact, very few majors at the college I teach at require public speaking. I know public health is one of the few that does. The majority of kids in my class are either public health majors or they're taking it just to work on their public speaking skills. I feel like the fact that it's not a required major is putting us, or putting students specifically, at a disadvantage. Now, if you imagine a business major and he's getting up, towards the upper levels, and he's taking his capstone course, and part of the capstone, maybe an entrepreneurship class, he has to present a product to a board of directors or a CEO or somebody like that. And that presentation, to present this product, the ultimate goal of his entire degree, and this is the first time he's gotten up to give a presentation. He's at an immediate disadvantage because he hasn't taken any sort of public speaking class. He has not been prepared. Now, don't get me wrong. We are all inherently able to speak to an audience. Some are able to do it better than others, but ultimately what it takes is practice. Now, you have certain English teachers. I know I had an English teacher in high school whose philosophy was that you learn to write by reading. And I think there's definitely something to that. We didn't do a lot of writing in class. We just read book after book after book, and I think I'm a pretty decent writer. But I also think that parallels very nicely with speaking. The more you speak, the better you're able to do so. In my public speaking classes, in addition to my main focus making you comfortable, because as we all know, or most of us know, public speaking is one of the greatest fears out there. So my job, the first thing I do when I talk to my students on the first day of class is I just want to make you comfortable. But I also want you to get a lot of practice. So in addition to the 4 main speeches, the introductory, the informative, the persuasive, and special occasion speech, every day when we're not doing those speeches, after I've given some sort of little lecture, I pick 2 or 3 people and I give them a topic and I have them go out in the hall. These little impromptu speeches. It could be something benign, like what's the best birthday present I ever got? Who's my favorite pet? And I have them take a couple of minutes and I have them come back in and just speak for 2 or 3 minutes. And that's doing a few different things. A, it's getting them more and more comfortable by speaking more and more often in front of this group, not just the 4 main speeches. They're going to do these little impromptus 5 or 6 times throughout the semester. So they're getting more and more comfortable speaking in front of a group. They're also forced to use their creativity by just being handed a topic and running outside the classroom and trying to write a quick speech. But the most important thing to me, what they're learning, is they're learning to develop their own personal speaking style. And you don't get that by just giving one presentation in a business class each year. You're able to develop your style by speaking over and over again. I'm still working on mine. I get up for an hour at least 4 times a week in front of a classroom and give a lecture. Every time, that's public speaking right there. And I'm continually evolving my style. And that's helped when I've given lectures, when I've given keynote speeches, when I've given wedding speeches, things like that. And it's because I'm able to speak in public often. But because colleges aren't requiring this in most of their majors, I feel like a lot of students are at a disadvantage. And I would love to see that change. I would love to see specifically a communication major require public speaking as a class. I just think it's inherently, to the advantage of the major to have public speaking be a requirement. I really don't understand why it's not. I don't make the rules though, but if I did. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. I would love to know what you think. If you have a chance, leave a comment below if you agree or disagree. Send me an email at chris@evenflowcc.com. Subscribe to my channel. Send me some ideas. What do you want to hear me talk about? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you want to send me something ugly? I'm cool with it. I can take it. But I hope you like what you're hearing, or I hope it's at least starting or has the ability to start a dialogue and gives you something to think about or talk about. We'll talk to you next time.